The Cocos Keeling Islands, a name far too long for the place it describes, yet despite its small size and population, the Cocos Keeling Islands still have some interesting history. So, without further ado, let's dive right in. The territory is made up of an archipelago of 27 islands, southwest of Indonesia, although only Home Island and West Island are populated. The territory has a total area of 5.4 square miles, or 14 square kilometers, and the highest point is only 30 feet, 9 meters above sea level. The climate is, of course, tropical, with high humidity and warm weather all year round. But you didn't come for a weather report. It's history time. Her tale begins in 1609, when William Keeling, captain for the East India Trading Company, becomes the first European to find the islands. He led to the island's double name. They are named Cocos because of the large amount of coconuts growing there, and Keeling after him. Just like Pitcairn, Cocos remained an obscure, forgotten island chain for a long time before there were any real significant events there. Over 200 years later, a Scottish merchant by the name of John Clunies Ross stopped briefly at the islands on the trip to India. He decided he wanted to settle there with his family in the future, planting a Union Jack and planning to return. The date of his original arrival is somehow, though, in dispute. Some sources say 1814, some say 1825. How this 11-year difference arose, I have no clue, but regardless, there was another merchant who had a very similar idea at a very similar time, and his name was Alexander Hale. Hale is now known for only two things: his failed settlement attempts in the Indian Ocean and his polygamous lifestyle. He and his 40 Malay wives settled on the island shortly after Ross left. In a double twist of irony, the captain who ferried them to the island was actually Ross's brother, unaware of Ross's plans to settle there. But, nevertheless, after 2 years away, Ross returned, and the scene is described later as such. Quote, "After 2 years, shreds of it, the flag, still fluttered in the wind, and his, Ross's, sailors, nothing loath, began at once the invasion of the new kingdom to take possession of it, women and all." Thus a battle was born. On one hand was Ross and a bunch of really buff sailors. On the other was a rich dude and his 40 wives. Unable to drive away his new neighbors, Hare kept retreating further and further into the jungles. Eventually, however, his wives started deserting him for the buff sailors led by the Ross family, and Hare left the islands in despair. From this point on, Ross personally ruled over the island, bringing in workers from Malay to farm coconuts and paying them with money that they could only use in his store. Basically, they were little better than slaves. Eventually, Ross died and his son took over, calling himself Ross II. In 1857, a British captain came and somehow accidentally annexed the island for the British Empire. I don't know how, but basically it changed nothing for a long time, and eventually Queen Victoria formalized the status quo by bequeathing the islands to the Ross family in perpetuity, although they did remain part of the British Empire. In both world wars, the island served as a vital communications link, and in the late years of World War II they even saw some use as an airbase. After the disintegration of the British Empire, there was a long transition period, but eventually the islands were bought from the Ross family, who, to be truthful, weren't given much choice in the matter, by the Australian government for $4.75 million in 1978. In 1984, a referendum was held on the status of the islands, and the people voted for integration with Australia. As of present day, most governance is done for mainland Australia. An Australian administrator is appointed by the mainland government to run the islands, although they don't actually live or work on the islands, and for some reason are under the Department of Infrastructure, Transport, Regional Development, and Communications. Yes, that's all one department. On the state level, they are generally considered part of Western Australia, mostly. Cocos Islanders are able to vote in federal elections, generally supporting the Labour Party and other left-wing parties. There is also a local Shire Council of 7 members, serving 4-year terms, although some reports I read seem to indicate that it is rare for anyone to serve more than 2 years before retiring, although I was unable to find much to substantiate this, setting aside any reason as for the mysterious. However, I have been unable to corroborate and Okay, here we go. There is also a local Shire Council of 7 members, serving 4-year terms, although some reports I read seem to indicate that it is rare for anyone to serve more than 2 years before retiring. However, I was unable to corroborate these accounts or find a reason for the early retirements. I have reached out to the Shire Council for comment, but have yet to receive any response. Defense and policing are, of course, the federal government's responsibility, and although there are no permanent military installations or deployments on the islands. As for policing, there are 2 deployed police officers who appoint 2 special members from among the local population who are given police powers. The islands do hold a highly strategic position along key trade routes, leading to there being some interest in developing them militarily. However, this has yet to lead anywhere substantial. There are basic health services on the islands, but for more serious issues, residents have to be transported over 1,900 miles to Perth, the Australian mainland. As for the economy as a whole, it is incredibly small, mostly based around fishing, farming, and tourism, with most essentials being imported, and them being heavily reliant on Australia. In terms of demographics, the strong Malaysian influence from the original settlers is easily apparent. Out of the 593 inhabitants, 65.6% are Muslim and 61.2% speak Malay at home. But that's pretty much it. So what did you think? Will the Cocos Islands become the next global superpower? Probably not, but if you did enjoy this video, please like, comment, and subscribe.